The next speaker, the next story you're going to hear is from Teresa Rowan. Teresa is a principal at the Albert Schweitzer Elementary School at San Juan Unified School District in Carmichael, California. And Teresa is going to talk about an encounter she had when she was a new principal. And she is going to share the experience of the mental models that she encountered. Much like you used the ladder with Sherry, Teresa's going to go over that right now. Teresa, thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me. I am going to share my screen here.
Perfect.
So I am going to talk about the ladder too, and I love the ladder. The ladder is how I naturally process change. I have a former colleague who always used to say, uh-oh, she's up her ladder again. I have to go all the way up my ladder so that I can come back down and really gain that perspective that you can only get from the top of the ladder. So I'm going to talk through kind of a just my experience as a new principal at a school site, and how I use the ladder to really help me to move a system. So a few years ago, I walked into a school leadership role at a school that was known by many of my colleagues as a very tricky place to work. I'd been told that the staff was hard to work with, that there was a lot of negativity on campus, that there was a lack of warmth and joy in classrooms and within the school community itself. And that many of the relationships between staff, students, and families existed really on a very rocky foundation. Years prior, I had experienced these things myself in another role that had me working on that campus on a fairly regular basis. So I had some mental models that I needed to address myself, and then all of the influx of mental models that were being thrown at me from others. I had to address those things, and I had to decide how I would use them as I entered this new role. So I tiptoed in, I watched, I listened. I really needed to see the big picture. I needed to figure out why some of those mental models existed. And what I saw and heard as I observed was that there was really just a palpable lack of trust, not in me specifically, but in anyone that was in a leadership role. My staff came to the office only when there was a problem. No one ate in the staff lounge. I quite literally had teachers on my staff who did not know the names of their colleagues if they didn't teach in their same grade level. Students didn't make eye contact with me. And if you know me at all, I'm a very touchy-feely, warm, huggy person. So that was devastating. They didn't make eye contact with me. They seemed either to fear administration or they were immediately confrontational when they were addressed by us. Our families didn't engage. People didn't come into the office unless they had something negative to say. Our events were poorly attended. There was an assumption that our attempts to reach out to families and make connections had a hidden disciplinary agenda. It was really a lot for us to sort through. So from there, I knew that that instructional practices and strategies needed refining, but I also knew that that was not where I could start. I shouldn't, and I wouldn't. What I needed to do was I needed them not to fear me. I had to start with trust. I had to build relationships at all levels with the staff, students, families, and between those groups. I had to help my teachers reclaim their sense of self-efficacy. I had to start by addressing the culture and the climate. There was really no other place to go. So I took some small steps at first. I continued to listen. I was intentional about honoring the experience and expertise of each of my staff members. I celebrated successes, no matter how small. Holidays, Fridays, staff meetings, our week at a glance, all of those became opportunities to highlight and celebrate the good that was happening at our school. Something that, because of their experiences, they just weren't able to see the good. So highlighting those things gave me an opportunity to shine the light on the good things that were happening and bring that to their attention. I spent a lot of time as a cheerleader. I encouraged, I coached, I collaborated, I added value when I could, but my role was really to walk alongside them and shine the light on the tools that they already had. I praised and applauded them. They began to then step into their own leadership roles and to seek out their colleagues for support and ideas. A little win, but a big win. So here's what I've learned. When people feel valued, even in those little nuggets of time, little things mean a lot, right? They can move mountains, or icebergs, if you will. Everything improves. We didn't focus on instruction. We didn't focus on reducing suspensions or increasing attendance. We focused solely on relationships, on building community, on being intentional and consistent with praise, on developing a growth mindset and making risk-taking a learning opportunity rather than a potential disciplinary action or scolding. As a result, though, instruction and learning improved. Teachers and students became more willing to take risks. The classroom community circles became a regular part of our students' day. The number of students being sent out of their classrooms for disciplinary actions was dramatically reduced. Parents and guardians popped into our school office just to say hello, and smiles in the hallways became our new normal. It felt good. This past year could have unraveled it all. It could have been catastrophic to the work that we've been doing. It wasn't awesome. It wasn't great. It wasn't an ideal situation, but despite all of the obstacles, our school community became closer. We relied on one another. We built that foundation of trust and respect that is mutual. And when people come to our school now, they smile. They say, wow, it feels different around here. It feels nice. And that feels good. There wasn't any magic involved. There was just a willingness to work my way up the ladder and help myself come back down, a willingness to lead with vulnerability, which over time allowed my staff, my students, and my families to lean into their own vulnerability. And really that intentional pause at the very beginning to check and address my own mental models, to change perspectives, and that willingness to work my way up the ladder made all of the difference in the world. So today, as I sit here, I am on a precipice. I'm transitioning from one school to another, and as much as change is terrifying, I am confident that I have the tools, I know the habits, and I have for sure the support that I'll need as I enter and begin to move a new system. And just a shout out, Anna Panya, who you'll hear from later, is taking the reins at the school I'm leaving, and I'm so thrilled that she too has the tools and the habits and the support that she'll need to continue the work. It's not done, but there's a better starting point.
It's never done, is it, Teresa?
Never done.
It's always one thing after another. And